Man, oh man, it's time, baby! I've been anticipating this day for a while now. There's been a lot of nostalgic movies and shows I've looked through, but out of all the media I've consumed growing up, there's nothing I was more fond of than the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All the shows, different movie adaptations, toys, I was here for it all, man. And so now that I'm older, and it's been admittedly a hot minute since I've watched TMNT, it's time I take a look back at my childhood heroes. I wanted to take the time to really dive into each aspect of the Turtles, so I'll be doing multiple parts to retrospect on the different adaptations. So I do really appreciate you clicking on the video, it helps support the channel, and if you'd like to see future parts, feel free to like and subscribe. And also, leave your thoughts on the TMNT franchise as a whole in the comments below. Without further ado though, let's dive in. Today, we're starting with the 90's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle series. I remember sitting down at a young age and just replaying these movies over and over again on the VHS player. Although maybe they aren't the greatest thing ever as far as film and storytelling goes, I found they all had a really charming quality to them, bringing me back to my childhood. I never found myself bored or wishing it was over, it was just a consistently chill, good time. Starting with the first movie released in 1990, it's really a toss-up for a lot of people's personal favorites between this and the second one. I personally think they're about the same for me because of a few standout moments I'll get to, but starting with the movie itself, like I said before, I love it, but it's not a great film overall. The plot is pretty standard. More importantly though, and why people enjoy it, is because it's a TMNT story centered around the Shredder and Foot Clan. That'll become a bigger issue for a lot of people later into the franchise, which we'll discuss, but that's not something here. The story is centered around Shredder and the Foot Clan taking over the streets of New York, growing their army by swaying impressionable young teenagers. Off the bat, you notice the fun 90s stylization, which I'm so fond of. What's also very 90s of this movie is the costume design. I mean, who let the Foot Clan walk out like this? Shredder really wanted an army of teenagers dressed up like flies? I could go into the Turtles as well, but my nostalgia bias will not let me say anything bad about those big rubber suits. I think this is probably my favorite Splinter adaptation as well. I really like his scraggly old look and the fact that he's a nice balance between sweet, serious, and funny. So yeah, back to the plot, it's a pretty standard, straightforward story between the Turtles and Shredder. We follow Danny as he is recruited into the Foot Clan. Fun facts about Danny, everyone: he is the son of April's boss, and he also wears the same shirt throughout the entire movie because Sid. He shows us the Foot Clan's hideout, which yeah, I can see how their plan is working, because this place is built to be where every 90s teenager would want to spend their days. It looks dope. The Foot Clan attacks April because she's investigating their organization, and that's when she's introduced to the Turtles after Raphael saves her. While the Turtles are busy becoming friends with April though, my boy Splinter is kidnapped and tortured. Hashtag free my dog Splinter. We get some pretty bad but goofy and fun action sequences. I mean, it's just the 90s, what can you expect? It's a lot of just bumping into each other and scuffling, although there is some legit good moments of choreographed action, but it really thrives when it's not taking itself too seriously. I love when the Turtles are throwing out corny jokes and doing wacky moves like the Wheel of Fortune. It's so fun watching the Foot Clan really in any scene. Watch the first and second movies back and just zone in on what they're doing, and you'll get moments like this. There's some training montages and cool moments with the cast. I think the Turtles are really enjoyable here, and all the voice actors have a good time. That's never really an issue in any of the TMNT movies though. I think the Turtles are always the strong suit of them. As we'll see later, it's everything else that brings the films down. Here though, we do get a lot of time with the Turtles, and that's good. Rightfully so, it's a TMNT movie, but the real standout for me is Splinter in the climax of the film. This dude is on some insane anime timing. Leading up to this point, he's constantly spewing the most random ninja zen nonsense, but he does it in a calm, badass way. Bro's locked up in chains but never wavers under pressure. Then, in the final battle, Bro just shows up like he's him and doesn't even try. He shows up to lecture Shredder mid-battle and then just cleans him up with minimal effort. It's insane, and you best believe I was so hyped watching him do his thing.
What I began with your ear.
It was so fire, man. He's my overall favorite character in this series. My favorite character in this movie, however, is by far Raphael. He's so goofy, man. He's the same hard-headed, fight-seeking dude he usually is, but they took that and threw the most over-the-top, typical, hardball New York accent on him. It continually changes throughout the movie, but I can't help but laugh every time something serious happens. There's just Raph over here gabagooling his way through the scene.
A Jose Canseco bat? Tell me, you didn't pay money for this.
He's also written like a huge man-child, and it just adds to why I love him. Anytime he gets angry, he does one of three things. He either starts yelling at someone like he's in a 70s mob movie.
Hey Raph, where are you going? Out to a movie. That okay with you?
He gets himself slumped for no reason.
Did you?
Oh my god.
Or he throws a tantrum. And let me just tell you, this might be the goofiest scene in the movie. I believe this is after Splinter got kidnapped. Raph got all mad and decided to go to the rooftop to let some anger out, we'll say.
Damn!
Raph's easily my favorite, but I guess we should talk about my least favorite, big jock Casey Jones over here, coming straight out of Alpha Chat Academy. I understand it's a different era and the leading male role was a lot different back then, but god damn, Casey is not likable whatsoever. His very forced relationship with April might be the worst part of the series because it's not even shitty to the point of funny, it's just weird. All he does the whole movie is catcall April and make very odd advances. Then there's the scene that supposedly cements their relationship, which involves Casey in the most awkward and aggressive way possible, forcing April into a chair to massage her.
Okay.
I don't know, man. Maybe I just don't understand love, because after this, April and him live happily ever after, until he's replaced in the second one, of course. That might just be a testimony to the writing though, since dialogue isn't exactly a strong suit in this either. Unless it's the Turtles having fun with the wacky dialogue, it's just so goofy watching some of these actors' performances.
Are you trying to tell me how to do my job?
Overall, I can very understandably see why this is so many people's favorite TMNT movie. It's very charming and has all the key aspects to a Turtles movie. Although not all of it was great, like Casey, there's a lot of standout moments cementing it forever in my heart, full of nostalgia. On to the second one though. TMNT 2, The Secret of the Ooze. If I had to choose, I'd probably say this would be my favorite. This movie gets a heavy vibe check from me, the 90s stylization continues to thrive, and the comedy is a lot better. While the first was just as funny, a lot of that came from laughing at the flaws of the film, like the dialogue and the action. There's still some of that here, but this movie takes itself a lot less serious and plays into the goofiness of what it is. It feels almost cartoonish, but in a good way, with a lot more moments of just blatant childish humor. Even the action took a tonal shift from actual action with some comedy sprinkled in, to cartoon level jokey sequences.
Can we talk?
There's a lot of similarities with the first, obviously like Raph's ever-changing hard-headed New York accent, or Splinter constantly spewing Zen quotes, but the differences they made go a long way to making this movie overall more enjoyable. We get some new characters. April is recast, which, although I like Judith Hoag's April from the first a bit more, Paige Turco does a fine job stepping in. Also, Casey Jones gets replaced with Keno, who is a much more charming and fun character in my opinion. He also delivers some really enjoyable action sequences. Speaking of which, we open the movie with a really fun sequence introducing us to pizza delivery boy Keno and the Turtles once again. This movie holds a lot more nostalgia for me, and this is one of those scenes I can vividly remember. Something about the aesthetic and the goofy action just won my heart over as a child.
Wait. Check this. Oh, walk the dog. That's pretty good, huh?
Something else that's consistent from the first as well is the Foot Clan. Like I mentioned before, you find any scene with them and you just watch them in the background. There's bound to be some goofy stuff happening. Particularly, I remember this action sequence with the Turtles during where they're facing off with a bunch of the Foot Clan. And then, I noticed in the background, there's a ledge with a bunch of the Foot Clan members standing on top posing and doing nothing to help the fight. Like, who told them to do this? To the plot, it's again another classic TMNT-centric story, around a surviving Shredder and the Foot continuing their evil plans. There's a lot more emphasis on the origins of the Turtles, hence the secret of the ooze name. Shredder and the Foot get a hold of the ooze and use it to create Toka and Razor, who end up being giant baby Chad meatheads.
Babies! They're babies!
I'm gonna be honest now, I don't remember a lot from the middle portion of this movie. I kinda zoned out and just enjoyed the vibes, although I don't remember much of any importance happening anyways. That's alright though, because the real reason this movie was enjoyable was the beginning and the ending. The middle can be whatever. The climax to this movie rocked. We got some of my favorite action sequences in the series, really embracing the goofiness. First, the Turtles try to defeat the baby Chads with the power of drugs. They offer them powdered donuts infused with an antidote that will revert them back to animals. Unfortunately, that didn't work, although it did make me want some donuts. And then we have the nightclub scene, which was such a product of the era and so dope. This movie has such a killer soundtrack and utilizes that in the big battle with a Vanilla Ice cameo and some fun action. I do remember leading up to this point, some of the plot involved Kino being told by everyone to stay behind for his own safety, and then Splinter goes on one of his long-winded ninja zen speeches just to tell him he can't actually keep him there, and he's free to leave whenever he wants, and then he just does.
You can't keep me here, you know.
No, I cannot.
We even briefly get Super Shredder, but then he gets toasted by his own stupidity. This movie is dope, but Splinter always is bringing the iconic moments, and again, there's one moment that I can't stop thinking about and adds to the reason I love this series. This is supposed to be a super serious scene, but it ended up being the funniest moment in the entire franchise for me.
Where's Splinter?
He's been up on the roof ever since he saw your report.
Really? Doing what?
Coming.
I'm glad to see other people had the same viewing experience as I did, and I'm not the only one who thought the same thing. Overall, for a TMNT movie, this was fantastic. It had everything you'd want in a Turtles movie. Whichever movie is your favorite will come down to personal preference on the tone of the movie you want, whereas the first one is a bit more grounded in realism, or about as close to realism you can get with talking turtles, and it is a more straight-to-the-point story. The second enjoys being a goofy, fun time and doesn't take itself serious at all. I guess it's about time we go to the third installment though. Talking about favorites, the movie that is very few people's favorite, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Crazy enough, I was in love with this movie and I was one of those people who considered it my favorite. And it's probably the reason why I still enjoy it to this day. Objectively, it is the worst film, but to me, it's about on par with the others for enjoyment. There's still goofy moments with the Turtles and a wacky plot, but I do understand a lot of the criticisms against it. Let's start with the good though. This movie has a weird kind of nostalgia for me. Even the opening scene is oddly enough a standout. I think the comedy is quite charming, and I like everyone's relationships. Mikey in particular is at his best in this movie. He's so over the top and is such a tonal contrast to the rest of the cast, bringing much needed life to the screen.
Elvis Presley in Blue Hawaii.
Oh, yeah.
The action is also by far the best in the series as far as actual good choreographed action sequences. I thought they killed it, especially considering the fact they all must have been dying outside in these big ass turtle costumes. There's a point where I was like, god damn, they're out in the sun with the turtle suits on, plus armor on top of that, and they're riding on horseback. Yeah, good luck, pal. To the not so great though, there's the main points that a lot of people bring up, like the turtles' designs and puppeteering taking a hit, or the awful story. And while the turtle design didn't really bother me, the story was pretty batshit. We have this weird time travel story where we're sent back to 16th century Japan. It doesn't really have anything to do with the turtles besides the fact they are in it, and it's filled with really poor side characters that are just comically bad and I couldn't care less about. The main characters though are a bit weird. We have April, who got sent back in time first and acts like she couldn't care less. It's the weirdest thing because she's literally thrown into a different time period and threatened by a bunch of people and chooses to just mess with them like she isn't in danger.
I really don't have a clue, okay? So why don't you just drop this macho stuff?
She's literally being accused of being a witch and is just like, sure pal. April, do you know what they used to do to presumed witches back in the day? Because I would not be trolling in this situation right now. She's more concerned with the dude who is supposed to remind her of Casey, I guess?
Casey?
He looks nothing like him. Maybe the most odd character choice though is Raphael, who up to this point has been the consistently hard-headed New Yorker who is always ready for action. But then, suddenly in this movie, he loses his accent and is on some Zen shit, promoting love over war. He even takes on a parental figure to some kid, like what?
You guys are kids. You should be out, You should be out having fun, flying those things.
There's tons of like whatever plot points, like Donatello casually figuring out how to recreate time travel within a few days in the 16th century. Like, okay pal. Also, Casey's back, yay! Another main issue I've seen is we don't get anything with Casey or Splinter. And while Casey I don't really care about, I did miss my boy Splinter quite bad. I can't say I dislike this movie though, it still delivers on a lot of the same fun notes from the first two, just in a really odd and poorly written package. I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I was so happy to revisit some of my favorite childhood movies. Although they aren't great films, they are great where it matters and deliver a chill, enjoyable time. They're 90's kids movies after all and bring so much charm. They're at their best when they embrace the cartoonish nature of the series. I would have loved more anime moments like with Splinter at the beginning, but oh well. I'm very excited to continue this retrospective through the franchise soon, and I hope to see you here again. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and cowabunga, dude.
Cowabunga.
Huh?
I made a funny.
And remember, go ninja, go! I made another funny.
Huh? Yo, dude! Just like Elvis in Blue Hawaii.